Hello and welcome to Model Minutes. This video is a quick build of the RAF Mustang IV in 1/72 scale from Airfix. Inside this kit, as it's a starter set, you get 4 paints, a small portion of glue, 2 sprues and a clear sprue, along with the instructions and a set of decals. The first thing I decided to do was paint all the internal components. I used Tumbrel 78 to do this. This includes the cockpit, the wheel wells, and any parts which you might be visible when the aircraft is finished. At this point, I am picking out all of the small details which go externally, such as the wheels, the propeller, and elements of the cockpit. Inside the cockpit, you need to install a decal as part of the instrument panels. This was done by soaking it in warm water and sliding it off in the appropriate position. As you can see at this point, I still haven't taken any of the parts off the sprue. Now it's time to install the components inside the aircraft. Having dry brushed a little silver to pick out the detail, I then started work on the cockpit. The cockpit is quite large, as the P-51D or Mustang IV has a bubble canopy, and you can see a lot of detail inside the cockpit. The main fuselage halves can be then disassembled from the sprue and glued around the cockpit. A bare minimum of sanding was also required in order to make sure the parts fitted correctly. Having joined the 2 fuselage halves, it was now time to join the wing parts together. Prior to taking them off the sprue, I made the holes for the drop tanks in the bottom of the wings, and then glued the parts together. Close peg or tape would be handy here, so that you don't have to use your fingers to hold them together whilst the glue sets. This part can then be installed onto the fuselage, and it goes together well with no filling or gaps visible. I decided to glue the flaps in a down position, as I was going to position it with the wheels down on a display base when it was finished. At this point, I'm installing the pontoon parts that hold the drop tanks. The next part is to paint. I used a wide brush and the supplied acrylics included in the kit. My normal philosophy is to start with the lightest colour and then work towards the darkest, so I decided to paint the base colour first. Then I moved on top of the wings, painting the dark grey. The next step will be to paint on the green in the camouflage pattern, following the lines of the instructions. The clear canopy part has to be glued onto a normal piece of plastic before adding it onto the model. I used PVA glue to do this so that it avoided fogging up the clear plastic. The benefit of acrylic paint, as included in the kit, is that it dries quite quickly, but it does need a few more coats. The landing gear was quite tricky to assemble, and I think I had a few issues with it. The instructions didn't seem to be completely clear, and I may have glued it the wrong way around to start with, but once I realised my mistake, I rectified this, and it didn't detract from the overall construction of the kit. At this point, you can see me using a candle to heat up my knife, as there were some very tiny parts and I was worried I was going to break them when I cut them off. The landing gear is being installed at this point. I used 2 paint pots to help position the aircraft upside down. This is to avoid it from rolling over or damaging any small parts on the other side. The decals are cut into pieces and then soaked in warm water until they become a bit loose, but the trick is to make sure that they don't come off of the backing paper. They are then positioned using a little bit of modelling set solution to ensure that they stick to the model correctly and soften to form a painted on look. The only decals I had trouble with were the yellow ones that go on the leading edges of the wings. That is because they have to fold around the model. and it took quite a while and some perseverance to do this. The penultimate parts to be installed were the engine exhaust pipes. That was because I didn't want to have to paint them whilst I'd already painted the rest of the model. After the decals had been applied, I used a matte varnish over the model to seal them in. I then used a little bit of silver to dry brush to make the aircraft look as if it had been made out of aluminium. At this point, I'm installing the clear parts using again PVA to prevent it from fogging up the glass. Pastels were used to weather the model, particularly on the gun ports and the engine areas, to make it look like it had been in battle. And here's the finished model. All in all, it took about 12 hours to build, and as it's a new tool kit from Airfix, it goes together incredibly well. The only part I had a problem with was the aerial that goes on the top of the model. I had to make my own part for that and replace it as the original part broke. But all in all, a very good kit and excellent results at the end. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Is there anything I could have done better? Do you like it? Have you built one yourself? Have you got any tips for me? If you haven't got one of these kits, I suggest you go and get one. Retailing for less than £10 in the United Kingdom, very well worth it. Thanks for watching this video. If you like what you saw, make sure to like, comment and subscribe, and I will see you all again next time.